And I'm really excited to have everyone here and the education team doing the 2305 upgrades. Woohoo!
Well, welcome everyone. We're glad that you're joining us today. This is round two of our What's New webinars. If you missed it yesterday, or if you're just back for more, wondering if we're going to add some additional commentary, which we might because Donna's here. So anything is possible. My name is Katrina Burka. I am one of the traveling educators on our team. I've been with Bywater about a year and a half, and I come out of the corporate world. I have some experience in public libraries, school libraries, and academic libraries. I am going to pass it along to Donna. So I think our plan was to go in order of how long you've been at Bywater. So we should have started with Donna, but since she passed it back to me, I'm passing it back to her.
Well, excellent. Good to see everyone. My name is Donna Bachowski, if you don't know me yet. I've been with Bywater, gosh, 6 years as of next month. Doesn't seem possible. I am in Northern Kentucky. I've been here for just about 2 years now. And I recently have formally stepped into my role as director of implementations. So I now am chief cat herder for the amazing crew that I'm working with as far as the education and the data teams. So this is kind of bittersweet, my last one that I've been slightly involved with, but it's also nice kind of being able to kind of see the new crew coming in and doing all the amazing things. So y'all are in great hands, you know that. All right, so now you're going to test me, right? Next up is going to be Heba.
Hi, I'm Heba. I'm one of the webinar educators. All the little libraries that fall between the cracks and don't need somebody to come on site to teach them, that's who I get. Academics, botanical gardens, law libraries, I've gotten to do a lot of fun stuff. I've been at Bywater for about 2.5 years. I came out of public libraries first. And I'm in the Kansas City area, so holding up the central time zone of our crew. And next is Lizette.
Hi, I'm Lizette Shear. I'm the education support here on the education team. I've been here for just under a year. I started in like February of last year, so getting close to a year now. And before I was working or my library experience is mostly in public libraries, especially I was working at the Valnet Consortium in North Idaho before I came here. And next is Esther.
Hi, everyone. I'm also in Idaho and I came from public library, mostly a little academic. I also do webinar trainings and I'm also a cataloger. So I probably field the cataloging questions if you have those for you. And the next is Holly.
I'm Holly Mills. I am talking to you all from Southern Oregon for probably the last time I'll ever see partners in Southern Oregon because I'm moving to Washington next week. So we are really strong force out here in Pacific time. And really it's going to be heavily Pacific Northwest in a minute. Anyway, all that aside, I've been here for about 6 months. Before that, I am coming from public libraries. Most recently, I was with another partner library. And I am one of the traveling educators. And next is Heather.
Hey everybody, I am one of the traveling educators. My name is Heather Romans. But yes, I am up here in Moscow, Idaho. I've been with Bywater for 5 months now. So this is my first upgrades webinar, first just about everything lately. So that's been fun. Before my time at Bywater, I worked at the Valnet Consortium. I knew Lizette. We worked together at this local library here. And so now we've both moved over to fantastic Bywater. And with that, I guess we'll get started. Katrina.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and get started. So those of you who are joining us for the first time for one of our What's New webinars, I'm just going to give you some context. So every 6 months or so, we do upgrades with our partner libraries. And we don't have time in a 1 hour webinar to go through every single bug fix or enhancement. So today we're going to show you, kind of like Oprah's favorite things, we're going to show you the education team's favorite things in 2305 release. So as we go through, be taking notes of the things that you like. Use the chat feature and the comment features to let us know what you're excited about. At the end, we're going to share with you what our favorite things are from this release, and we would love to hear what yours are as well. As we go through, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We'll try to address them live as we go through, but we should have plenty of time at the end to answer your questions as well. And with that said, I am going to pass it along to Heba to get us started.
All right, the year 2024, and I'm still trying to remember to unmute before I start talking. All right, so the enhancements that I'm going to talk about are things that are improvements to the staff client experience. And the first one is going to be a big, exciting one for our libraries that are really into their reports. So right now we have up a sample report that is a patrons who owe fines. And maybe we want to add something to it. So we want to generate a list of patrons who owe more than a certain amount of fines. Now Koha's report editor has a autocomplete to it. So something that I'm missing is maybe I want to do an email blast to these people to let them know we're doing some fine forgiveness. I don't have email in this report. So I know that the email is on the borrowers table. I have named the borrowers table P for this report. So I'm going to put in the table followed by a period. And now we have a listing of everything that is in that table that I can pull into the report. I could start typing email and see there's a couple different email forms. We'll go ahead and we'll grab p.email. We want to include our comma. If we scroll down, my instinct is to click that yellow Update SQL button, but right next to it is another new enhancement in Koha 2305, the Update and Run. Save a click right there. And now we can run that report. We've got $20. We'll go ahead and hit run. And now we've got the email column pulled into that report. So I can download this into Excel, throw it into a mail merge, whatever I want to do. I've edited this super easily. We think this is going to make a big difference for librarians who are maybe less comfortable with reports or the data structure in Koha. It's a little bit of training wheels to help you out. For the more experienced report writers, there has since been a bug filed in community asking for the ability to toggle that off. So if it's a little too helpful for you, right now there's not a way to turn it off. Keep your eyes peeled on the Koha community, and that enhancement may come up down the line. And yes, Michael, it makes it so much easier to know whether you're looking for home branch or branch code. I agree. The next set of enhancements I'm going to talk about are things in the bibliographic view of the record. So we're going to start up at Mark Preview. And if we click Show, this is bug 33281. It improves the authority links and adding them to the Mark Preview. So before you would just have a digit telling you that that is authority 18. Now that actually links out, so you have another way to click out into your authorities to do your work. And there's Heather with the squee. Just a tiny little thing, but again, save yourself a click. Down one field below that, we have bug 33607, viewing the Mark framework in the default bibliographic view. So before you used to do click in to edit the record, and then you could see what framework it is. Now it's right there on the bib, no extra clicks. It is visible to everyone. And then going down one more level into the holdings table, bug 31212 is an enhancement sponsored by MetroShare Libraries, one of our partners. The last seen information on the items is now a date time instead of just a date. So for the libraries that are not using cart to shelf, or it's a big busy library and you know that you've been slammed after New Year's and you have a lot of returns to process, knowing when it was last scanned in can tell you the difference between, am I looking for that item out on the shelf or is it still on a cart waiting to be shelved? This does have potentially some report ramifications if you have any reports that touch the items dot last seen value. So check in with your local report guru if that is something that applies to you. You just want to adjust that so that it's only searching the date instead of searching for the date and time to match. So those are the bibliographic record enhancements that put more information easily at your fingertips on a record. We're going to move into some cataloging tools enhancements. So the first one is bug 31611, which will starts with a system preference. This introduces the ability. Whoop. All right, we got a little out of order, and that's fine.
Oh, let me go back. Nope, I can go back. Let's go in the order. That's my fault.
That's okay. All right. So first enhancement, bug 31611, is making it more clear why you cannot delete something. So if you remember when you would try to do a batch deletion, you'd get a little grayed out box in the list that was really easy to overlook. Now, if you go to try to delete things, we get a really clear, easy to see, bright red X saying you cannot delete this. And if you mouse over it, it will tell you why. And that is our most common culprit, the can't check this, or it's currently checked out, so you can't delete it. So that's just a wonderful little quality of life enhancement to a very powerful tool in Koha. Now we'll go on to the next bug, 32019. We'll start with a system preference. This system preference is not itself new. Mark lost items as returned is what places can you return items from? The new feature here is the ability to return items from the batch item modification tool. And this one is going to be a big hit for the libraries that want to clear out those old lost items that have been gone for a year or 2 or 5, depending on your local culture. You want to end that checkout, but you don't want to trigger all the refunds because you kind of want to, you would like to get that payment if that patron ever comes back. So you can update the mark lost items as returned system preference to include from the batch item modification tool. This is not going to be selected by default since it's a new feature. Once we have that set, we can go in and do we're going to do a batch item modification. So we're going to go back to cataloging. And we're going to pick an item that is currently checked out to someone. So we've got an Avengers graphic novel checked out to Phil Coulson, little on the nose there. It is lost. It is still on Phil's account. We're going to, from our batch item modification, we're going to go ahead and pull that up. We have our usual menu there to edit items, but at the very bottom, we have a new function that is check-in items. So we'll go ahead and hit yes. We'll run that. We'll take a look at it, refresh that record. It is no longer in Phil's checkouts. If we go to that item record, it is still long overdue lost, but it is no longer on an account. We have before this feature came into Koha, there is an end checkouts plugin that one of our developers created, and I know some of our library partners have been using it. Others may have been a little wary to use a plugin for a function like that. Now it is built into Koha and a lot easier to use for cleaning up those old lost items. We have another bug fix, bug number 27992. This one fixes a long-standing issue where for the libraries that use a statistical patron to log their local use, it would not check in an item if it happened to still be on a patron's account. So maybe you have an old claims return sitting on the shelf, or something that a patron checked out and then left behind on a table. When you go to check it out as a statistical patron, so here we have an item checked out to Rachel Morgan. Our pages have grabbed it from the table at end of day. The local use has been recorded, and now it is checked in off of the account, because if it's logged as a local use in library, it's on the shelf. It should not be in a patron's account. So that is fixing kind of a long-standing pain point. If there is a hold, you'll also get a note that says item has a hold on it, and you will have to actually check it in to trap that hold. So you do still have to pay attention. But it gives you more information, and it does resolve that issue of checked out items not actually getting checked in when a staff member has physically handled it and logged that local use.
It will also clear lost values. So if something was lost or missing and it's recorded for local use, it will clear that lost or missing value as well.
And this one's kind of a quiet little fix that came in, because it didn't come into 2305 master. It came into 230506, which happens to be what we're upgrading our partners to. So, and then the last one is a little bit different topical shift. This one is a new permission that is controlling the ability to change the logged in library. This was sponsored by the Colorado Library Consortium. And it is, so currently staff can change their logged in location in a multi-branch system. This permission, and it's very easy to find, it's at the very bottom of the list, gives you the ability to turn that off. So for libraries that are in a consortium or who have more security needs, this you can revoke that permission, and then that staff member can only log into the location that is their home branch. The main login screen may still have the My Library dropdown, but if they don't have logged in library as a permission, the only branch they're logging in as is their home branch. We don't typically give accounts new permissions by default, but since this is a continuation of existing behaviors, all accounts will have this permission, and then administrators can roll that back as they need to, either on an account by account basis or for your accounts that are the templates for patron permissions in the patron permission plugin. And I see a Q&A. Okay, that's been answered. And that wraps up my section. So I am going to hand it over to Heather to talk about OPAC and public services enhancements.
Fantastic. Thank you, Heather. That was awesome. So much good stuff coming. The first bug I'm going to be talking about today is bug 32960. So this I'm pretty excited about. It's an enhancement to our already amazing item search feature. Before, you could only really choose between items that were checked out or not. And now you've got a third option there. You can do not checked out items, items that are checked out, or you can ignore the status, the availability status altogether in your searches. So great way to improve an already fantastic tool there. The next one I'm going to be talking about is bug 12029 relating to patron messages. So another very cool thing coming with this upgrade, and that patrons at my local library are going to be very pumped about, is that patrons are going to now have the ability to dismiss a message that is displaying on their account in the OPAC, rather than having staff remove it for them to get it off of their account. You can see on the example patrons account, there's this dismiss button right here at the top of the screen. They can click that, and when a patron does click it, it dismisses that message that pop up at the top of the screen, effectively deleting it from their account. but it is retained in the staff client, and now it's updated to read the actual read by or read on date from the patron. This information is stored in the patron read date field and can be reported on as well. So these messages are going to stay in here and be there until your staff manually deletes that. I want to point out that this is a permissions-based ability. So if you do not want certain staff to be able to batch patron modify accounts, this is something that you can block from being able to be done if you wanted to, or you could just let it fly and have that going there. So let's see. Oops, I think I jumped in the wrong thing. But anyways, you get the gist of what I'm saying. We're going to move on to patrons and circulation. And this is bug 28366. So the patron or the feature that I'm most excited about, and I know we're going to talk about this later, is the ability to batch modify patrons directly from the patron search results. So there are so many ways this feature will improve our user experience. And the example we're showing today involves a family who wants to update their addresses on their accounts. So you can search for the patrons in the patron search. Then you can select the patrons that you want to modify all at once. And then there at the top is the batch patron modification button there. Oh, that's interesting.
We didn't have that yesterday. Let's go back.
Oh.
There we go.
There we go. So now you can see this opens up all of these different fields that can be altered in all of the accounts that have been selected by those checkboxes. If you wanted to just delete out the contents of any of these fields, you could click that checkbox to the right of the field and it's just going to clear the information. This is the one that is permissions based. I started going into my permissions on the last bug, but this is the one that's permissions based. And it is about the batch patron modify. So your staff can still have the abilities to like add and edit patrons, but this one relates particularly to that batch patron modify. So yes, Rebecca, it is. So this feature has the potential to be a huge time saver for people. I know that when I worked in the public library and we had like maybe a big group or some families coming in, and it would be very time consuming to individually go into those accounts and make those changes. And so this really it's kind of a game changer as far as that goes. It's a big time saver. So very excited about that. And with that, I will pass it off to Katrina to keep going with patrons in circulation.
The one that I am going to show next is holds queue. It's a new system preference called holds queue prioritize branch. So we all know that when you have a multi-branch system, sometimes managing the holds queue and deciding where things go when they're checked in and how they transfer and fill holds can be confusing. This is going to be especially helpful for libraries whose collections float. So at migration, this is going to be set to home library, which will preserve existing behavior because in Koha, items always want to go back home, generally. If you use the holds queue prioritize branch and set it to holding library, when an item is checked in and the holding library matches the pickup library for the patron's home library, it will fill that hold rather than initiating a transfer back to its home library. So this, for libraries whose collections float, you'll want to go ahead and switch this system preference to holding library so that you will reduce transfers between those home and holding branches. The other thing I want to show you is a new notice. So if you go into your tools, into notices and slips, if I'm a patron and I am getting ready to go on vacation and I request a bunch of books to read on the beach, I may be, and those are all checked in at the same time. In the past, I would potentially get 5 to 10 emails for each one of those items as they're checked in. This bug, which is 8838, anything under a 5-digit number we know has been in the community for a while, digests the holds available notice. So now you'll see in notices and slips, there is a new notice here, hold DGST, digest. So you'll be able to edit that. Correspondingly, you'll be able to edit this on individual patron accounts, and you'll be able to go into your patron categories in administration and set that to send as a digest in your default messaging preferences right there by selecting the digests only. So that if I am that patron who has all of my holds checked in, I will get one email letting me know that my 5 holds are ready to come in and pick up. Keep in mind that this only applies, these changes to your default messaging preferences will only apply to new patrons created after these changes take effect. If you want to push changes to your default messaging preferences into your existing patrons, please submit a ticket to the Bywater team and we'd be happy to help you with that. Just keep in mind that that will overwrite any changes that your patrons have made to their default messaging preferences to that point.
So just to emphasize this, I know we are all so thrilled with this one. We've been waiting for it to forever. But the big caveat of this one is this is going to need to be patron initiated for the most part. There is not a clean way for us to go in there and give it to everyone without making all sorts of changes that your patrons have already done. So again, start the news, you know the patrons that are going to want those whole digests. Talk to them first. And I'm looking at y'all, particularly Metro Share, because I know we have talked about this a lot. You've got some of those, 45 holds a day sort of users. Talk to those folks first, show them how to get that whole digest set up, and move forward with that one. Great question. What is the time span on the cron for the holds digest?
I believe it's 15 minutes, but I don't know that for sure. I believe
it's whatever your message queue is set for, which typically by default is every 15 minutes. So potentially, yes, patrons still could get a couple of notifications, but it is cronning those within that 15-minute message queue that is our default setup.
All right. Yeah, there's some excitement on that one. It's been in the community for a while. The other one I want to show you here in administration, we're going to go into our debit types. So in the past, we've had 4 different system preferences that decided whether or not we were going to block users. Were we going to block users because they had a particular amount in manual invoices or in holds charges or in serials charges, and so we did away with those 3 system preferences and we've kept one. And now if you go into accounting and debit types in your system preferences, and I'm going to go ahead and show all my debit types, you'll see now you have the ability to decide by line, by code, whether or not you want that charge to count into that no issues limit. So if, for instance, I have set my no issues charge system preference to $5, do I want to include copier fees? Right now, I've said no. Maybe I want to include rentals. I don't want to include any rentals in there, so I want to uncheck the box for whether it's included in the no issues charge and save. So on that table again, I will see at a quick glance, anything that is checked no will not block checkouts. Charges of that type will not be included in hitting that $5 limit of the no issues charge. And Andrew is going to start practicing eyelash batting in case they say no. Very good. Wonderful. No issues charge. Yes, Michael, sorry. Did I misspeak for no issue charge? There is an S in that system preference. There is a typo in the bug title, and so I copy paste it wrong. The system preference is no issues charge. And so in this case, we've got that set at $5, and then you can define by debit types which ones will be included in that charge limit. Perfect. All right, Esther, passing the ball to you.
Okay, we're going to look at bug 31123, and this is the ability to add a content a warning note. And you can see here I have a movie, and at the bottom of this record, I've put the rating information into this content warning note. There's a few things to be aware of. So the first thing is we're going to edit this record, and I'll show you where I've placed that in the record. And so we've got the basic editor here, and we're going to navigate. Yeah, let's go to the basic. And we're going to navigate to the 590. That's what I've defined as my content warning note. You'll notice that it says that it's a local note. So when you're in the editor, it doesn't say that it's the content warning note. You'll need to know that that's what you've defined. And you can do that in the system preference. And here I've defined that as the 590. You can use any mark field that you choose. It will change the label in the record detail view and in the OPAC to the content warning. We do recommend the 590 because that's, according to Mark, the local notes. If you're using the 590 for some other field or reason, you can use any in the 590 range, so like 592. If you do select that, then you need to make it available to your framework. So if you need help with that, just let us know. Also, this won't be predefined for you. It will be blank, and it won't be enabled until you define what mark field you want to use. Okay, so Nicholas, yeah, you can use any mark tag. So if you want to use a different field, you could use 595, whatever you want. You just need to make sure your framework has that set up and visible. Okay, and we can take a look. It also displays the content warning note also displays in the OPAC as content warning note. Now, if you're using that in, if you are using Aspen Discovery, the content warning is not going to show as a content warning note. It is only going to display as a local note. So that is something we are going to have to pass on to the Aspen team to have that label change. Okay, so now we're going to move over to a couple of things relating to lists. So in this example, this is bug 32434. And now the record detail view shows what lists a record belongs to. So here I've added this record to 2 lists, and those lists are links. So you can click on them and go right to those in your from the record. It also will display in the OPAC what list something belongs to. So you can see here that they display now. So that's a nice thing to have. Okay, so the list links will not display in Aspen if you're using that discovery layer. Okay, the next one is a new permission to allow staff to edit a list from the OPAC. So we're logging in as a staff member here, and we'll navigate to our list again. Okay, so now you can see that there are your list editing tools are there at the very top where it says new list, and you have your ability to edit the list or delete the list. And that will allow you to change the name of the list, the privacy settings, and whatnot. And you also have the ability to remove items from a list, and you can move a bunch at one time, or you can remove them individually. So we can go to a staff member page and show you what the permissions are that allow you to be able to do this. So we have Sean, Spencer, or Katrina. Okay, so if you filter your list, you can, there you go. So you have 2 permissions related to this. You have edit public list content and then edit public lists. And so you can have one or the other or both. So, so those are the new list things. So I'm going to hand this over now to Holly for a couple more things.
All right. All right, the first thing I'm going to tell you about, I think is really exciting. In acquisitions, we now have the ability to receive multiple order lines at once. This one was sponsored by Virginia Polytechnic Institute. So the bug number on this is 8179. And there's been a requesting community for this feature for over 10 years. And now we've got it. That's exciting. It's going to really speed up the receiving process. All right, so when you're receiving an order, you're going to select each order line that you're receiving, and then scroll down and click receive to receive those. And now my first title, I'm going to click on edit at the far right. And I can, if I have multiple items, I'm noting which items I've actually received, making any changes. And then I have a button now that says next order. And that's going to take me to that next order line. Do what I need to do here. And when I've gone through every order line, I can save the changes. And now I just need to click confirm. And I've received that order. So that's that. So quick and simple. Next thing I'm going to talk about is we now have the ability to limit editing items by library group. So before this, we could limit it so that staff could only edit items at their home library. Now we can also use library groups there. I'm going to give Katrina, oh, we're not going to show this one. We're just going to talk about it. It's sort of hard to actually demonstrate. So if your library is using library groups, maybe as a hold group or a search group, when you're in there creating a new library group or editing an existing library group, you'll see a new checkbox to limit item editing by group. Once that's set up, we have an associated user permission. So staff with the permission edit items, and this is in the edit cataloging section. So edit items, those folks will then only be able to edit within that library group. And edit any item is what you'll use for staff who are going to be able to edit across the system. And that was sponsored by the Colorado Library Consortium. And that's everything we have for you today.
Ta-da! All right. Before we've been answering some questions as we go along, but I would love to hear from our team. So Donna, I'm going to call on you first because you weren't here yesterday. So we want to hear, what is your favorite thing in 2305?
Can I say our partners?
No, that's like answering, what's the answer in Bible study? Is Jesus God or the Bible?
Okay. There are so many things that I mean, and that's the thing is like being able to see some of these things come to fruition. Just it's a silly little one, but it's a bug that I filed, and I always feel extra cool when a bug I filed gets in there. And that is when you check in an item to statistical patron that it gets returned. I love seeing that. It didn't take that long to get it in the community, so it's really cool. And the use case was very, very specific. But it's one of those that again with a lot of stuff is that even though one partner was the first person to mention it, so many other people like, oh yeah. So I really am particularly fond of that one.
I'm going to piggyback because that was my answer too. Every time I have been training a library that I'm showing them the statistical patron, it's felt clunky and like an extra step that you check things out to the statistical patron, and then you've got to check them in to clear lost values or to take it off of a patron account. So I love that. That just streamlines that workflow and makes it much more intuitive for our partners. I'm with you. I'm going to cross my screen. So Esther, you're next on my screen as I go across.
Yeah, so the multi-line order receiving, I think it's going to be a game changer. So yeah, I really like that one. So do I pick somebody else?
Go for it.
Yeah, okay, Heather.
Okay. So I know I was already very clear about what my favorite one is, and I'm a broken record these days, but batch patron modification, people, like it's such a huge deal. Like, because we all know if we're working in a library, you get pulled away, people are coming up to the desk, you get distracted by something. Maybe you needed to update 3 or 4 different accounts and you haven't gotten through all of those. Your brain has gone to a different space now. Now it's like you're in that mode. You can batch modify those patron accounts right from the patron search results. One and done, you're done. I see a question. Last seen
There's actually a couple of
information.
questions, so I'm going to stop
Oh,
because you know me, I can't shut up.
no.
So we had a Q&A with a really good question from Bridget. What exactly is a statistical patron?
And I was trying to find the blog post that explains the difference between using record local use as the system preference, which for smaller libraries is really the easier way of single site small libraries, doesn't do a lot of holds or transfers. Using record local use is a great way to just record things that are sitting down. You may not check them out, or maybe they're not for loan, or you want to record, though, that your patrons have referenced that item so that there's a usage attached to it. So the statistical patron is something that we create for libraries who maybe are checking in a lot of items to initiate hold fills or transfers to other locations. We'll create a statistical patron as a way for them to be able to track their local in-house statistical use.
So basically that's what it is tracking that local use. So for us old school librarians, where we used to go around with a little tick mark in the back of the book, now you just check those items out to a statistical patron. It doesn't actually check them out, but it records use. The main difference is what Katrina hit on, is if you have materials that you are moving from branch to branch and you have to check those in to clear the transfers, using local use completely skews your stats. So you need to use a statistical patron. If you are a single site, you are not moving things from location to location. You don't need to check them in to clear transfers. You're perfectly fine using the system preference to record local use on return. But otherwise, you do need to use statistical. The other place I've seen statistical, even if it is a single library that doesn't transfer materials, is for those libraries that have like 3 or 4 floors or specific departments. For instance, we had a library that had 3 floors, and they were really curious how much of the adult material was being brought down to the children's area that parents were reading while they're waiting for their kids. And so that gave them some really great usage of what should have been in the children's area to keep the parents occupied while the kids were doing whatever they were doing. So some different ways that you can use that. But Bridget, that was a really, really long answer to what is a statistical patron.
Well, and Eileen is asking a follow-up question. Could you use statistical patron for reference book use?
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially for
some
things that
partners
maybe are usually not for loan. It's a great way to record that they were referenced within the library.
And again, we have partners that have like 5 or 6 statistical patrons. One is just for reference books, one is just for magazines, one is for whatever. So you can get creative, and we are more than happy to get creative with you. And then there is also another question in here. I don't want to lose this one from Christy. A quick question about the last seen information will now have a date, time instead of just a date. Can we go over the search filter advice on that one? I'm not sure I understand.
So that was me probably mentioning that if you have a report that is maybe you're looking for items that were last seen before a particular date when you did inventory, when you have a date time and you limit only on a date, sometimes results can get excluded depending on where they fall before or after on that timestamp. So in a report, what you do is you basically just throw a date in a parentheses around that value so that your search parameter is only paying attention to the date on that. It's a very small report tweak. If you have a report you think this might impact, you can ask your in-house report person or put in a ticket with us, and we can take care of that. It's a tiny thing, but we always like to let people know, like, hey, this might affect a report or two.
Yeah. Thanks, Heather. That's good clarification. Patrick's had his hand raised for a minute. So, Patrick, do you want to type your question, or let me see if I can find Patrick real quick. And I've allowed you to talk. Patrick, do you want to share your question?
Okay, it looks like we might be having problems with the connectivity. So Patrick, if you can put your question into the chat or into the Q&A, make sure we get it answered. But I know I interrupted. Who was it? Heather, the
Oh, there's one more question that was asked a
Oh,
long time ago that we didn't answer. Christopher asked, does that, it has to do with the logged in library permission? Does it have any impact on staff choosing a library at login? I'm not sure if we answered that.
I think I tried to. I'm not sure if I made it clear. So everyone who has the My Library at the login screen visible, if a patron who does not have logged in library tries to select a different branch, they just won't be able to. Koha will ignore that and log them in as their home branch. And then any place within the staff client that has where you can change your branch. So up at the top right, over in circulation, if you have the sidebar up, that option is just disappeared once they're in Koha proper. But it does not affect, like, it'll still look like they can change their branch on the login screen if we have not hidden that field on your login. But it doesn't functionally do anything for an account without that permission.
Okay, well, if there's no more questions, Heba, I pick you. Tell us what your favorite is.
I'm really excited about being able to mark lost items as returned from the batch item modification. I love a good house cleaning and getting rid of those things like those bad diet books from 5 years ago that went lost that you don't really want back because the world has moved on. Get those things out of there and clean it up. And I know this has been something where partners have come up with a lot of different workarounds for something that really should be a built-in functionality, and now it is. And I think Lizette hasn't mentioned a favorite.
Yeah, my favorite is definitely the SQL autofill options, because that's just going to make such a difference for people, especially who are starting out or who only do it sometimes. Just being able to have that autofill for you. I'm very excited about that. And as Esther, did you say your favorite?
I think Holly needs to go.
Ollie.
Sure. Since nobody's mentioned it yet, I love item search. I love anything that makes item search more powerful. Item search is fabulous. So I'm just gonna again shout out that ability to have more granularity with checked out items in item search. So speaking of cleaning house, Heba, I think that one's really nice. Oh, and also Andrew had shouted out a bug in chat on receiving multiple order lines and acquisitions. So yeah, it's gonna keep you receiving 20 order lines at once. So just kind of pay attention to the details as you're in there until that's fixed, so you're not accidentally missing, or Koha's not making you miss things. So thanks for pointing that out, Andrew.
And Kayla, we're going to need to look into your question a little bit more. I don't know. We're going to have to look into that one. So we'll get back to one of these amazing people. Will get back with you about your question as far as how that's going. So,
What about
awesome.
you? What about y'all? Who has a favorite bug fix in 2305?
It's looking like SQL auto or prefill is going to be really, especially for those of us who are terrible at some of this stuff. I think it's going to make it so much better. And then Eric had mentioned 3150. Sharing cart emails are now in notices. So that's a little thing. But if you have users that send carts to other folks, you can now customize those notices. It's so awesome. So
I'm seeing a lot of excitement over the receiving multiple order lines as well.
yeah.
And Jennifer over at Chesapeake says the batch patron modification from a patron search.
Yeah.
She's with Heather doing her fancy.
Yeah. And Spencer, I got to tell you, I keep the schema bookmarked right on my bookmarks bar because I'm in there constantly trying to figure it out. And when is it I type versus item types and blah, yeah. So fantastic. It's a lot of really exciting stuff coming through there. Okay, so for those of us who just weren't paying attention, if I want to watch this again in the future, or if I want to see the session you had yesterday, or if I have questions about 2305, is there some place I can go?
You need to go to the Upgrades Hub. We've already posted the recording from yesterday's webinar is live on YouTube, and that link is on the Upgrades Hub. As soon as we have the recording from today downloaded, we'll get on getting that uploaded there as well. So if you can't wait until we get this one uploaded, you can go back and watch yesterday's, which is going to have the same content, maybe some different examples, but it'll have the same content. And as soon as we have this one downloaded, we will go ahead and get it uploaded to YouTube as well. And it will be linked from the Upgrades Hub.
And what if I'm dying to try out some of these new functions and see what they look like? Is there some place I can go and see that?
You should totally go to the Bywater Solutions homepage and link at the bottom to see it. Don't die. Yeah, I'm with Brandon. Don't die.
So yeah, don't forget, we always have the test site available that you can go in there and try that out. It is on master, so it is a little bit different, but it will have all these functions in here. We just give the general warning that anyone in the world can use this. And so we have some people that do some really interesting things to the test site sometimes. It does get refreshed every 3 hours. So just kind of keep that as a heads up. But it is a great place if you don't have a test server that you can go in there and try and experiment and see some of these things that are coming up.
Julia's got her hand raised. Julia, did you have a question you wanted to type in chat? Nope. Okay. Lowered her hand.
So y'all, I told a joke on a Zoom meeting today, but nobody laughed. It turns out I'm not even remotely funny.
Wait, that was a joke? Oh. Wow.
I think that's where I show myself out.
Exactly. I don't get it. All right, everybody. That is a proper wrap with Donna's awful joke. Is a great way to end this webinar. If you have any questions, you want more information about this, please submit a ticket. If you're a Bywater partner, we'd be happy to help you, guide you to the information you need to get these things going on your sites. You'll be seeing the upgrades the week of January 15th, starting just after MLK Day. So be looking in your staff client for when you are scheduled for the upgrades. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure seeing you, and we will see you in a few months when we do our next upgrades webinar. Take care, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone.